So welcome to our final session of this academic year of humanity and healthcare series. Myself with Catherine Donnelly and Hugh Wiley and Shayna Watson and Ernest Snowgrove Clark and Terry Solius and Jennifer Conflin. We're really happy that you could join us tonight for our speaker, Tina Carson. We are really looking forward to this talk, and thanks Tina very much for joining us.
Welcome.
As always, we come together on traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee First Nations peoples, and it's important to acknowledge where we are and how we come together, albeit virtually on Zoom, is centered around Queen's University and the territories of the Kingston area. As far as we're aware, our planning committee does not have any specific disclosures or conflicts of interest for this session. And we're going to concentrate our time chatting with Tina and asking Tina to share some of her perspectives with us and all the work that she's done within healthcare. And I might ask Catherine, who knows Tina really well, to introduce Tina before we start.
Thanks, Damon, and thanks so much, Tina, for agreeing to join everyone here today. And just for people who may not know Tina is the on-site program coordinator for the Oasis program, the Oasis Senior Supportive Living Program, which we call Oasis. And Tina's been really the glue that has held the Oasis program together over the years. She's been with the program, I'm just going to say almost about 15 years through multiple different agencies and now working out of Providence Care. Tina's a PSW by background and as I mentioned, really fundamentally the glue and the visionary in terms of when we think about how Oasis is implemented on the ground. So Tina, so grateful that you could come today and share your thoughts over the years, and I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and everybody. I have to apologize because the video, or not the video, but the audio seems to be kind of cutting in and out. So if I don't hear your question, you're going to have to repeat it. Yeah. I live in the country and the internet's not that great.
Yeah, it sounds clear to me so far, but we'll just make sure that if there is any problems, we'll just put in the chat. Just thought, I know we connected a few times in order to prepare for today. I just thought, starting off, you have a rich history in terms of working in healthcare and your own reflections on your upbringing and how that's informed your role at Oasis. And just wanting to start off by sharing those with everyone.
So my initial thought was, why am I going to do this? And I kind of fell on the topic of empathy and sort of connected my father into the conversation. So let me just give you a little bit of background. My father was born to Ukrainian parents. His mother came over here alone in 1926. She came to Manitoba and she came over on a ship, I guess, to Halifax and started a life in, I believe, Bifrost, Manitoba, which I think is Gimli now. I'm not sure. Anyway, she ended up having my father. She was unmarried and she was raising him. And then when my dad was 7, his mom got quite sick and died of appendicitis. So at that time, the Children's Aid Society kind of scooped my father up. There was no family around, although there was a brother of the mom, so it would have been my dad's uncle. They never informed him, and they took my father probably about a half hour away, and he worked on a farm. So he was 7 years old, and he ran away a lot, and they never adopted him. They never, let him keep his Ukrainian name, his first or last. They changed it to whatever they wanted it because it was like a stigmatism attached to being Ukrainian at that time. So kind of fast forward that, things didn't work out really well for my dad as a youngster, understandable. And he made his way to Kingston. And anyway, he married my mom, and my dad was quite a heavy drinker, and it kind of caused a lot of problems in our family and relationships. And my mom and dad divorced when I was about 10. So I had 9 brothers and I was the only girl. Mind you, some of the brothers were from my mom's first marriage, but my mom raised us all. So anyways, really what I wanted to get at was I sort of had a really kind of, on again, off again relationship with my dad. And, I was always kind of embarrassed with him. I'd see him downtown and he'd be drinking and I really didn't want to be around him that much. So years later, I guess in the 80s, my brother, who just happened to come back from the Ukraine 2 days ago with his son, who finally got out of there, my brother started doing some digging and he found out about my dad's past and his heritage and connected all the puzzle together. And then I guess that just sort of made me understand my father better. And I started feeling really kind of quite bad that I thought, here's this man, he's been orphaned and 7 years old. Like I have grandchild, I have 5 of them, but one of them 7, and I can't imagine. And so I think it just sort of took me on a little bit of journey to get to know my dad better and be a little bit more, have a bit more empathy for him. And then that just sort of kind of continued on up until now. I mean, I just think it's really important to kind of hear people's story. I was really quick to judge him, but later on in life, I mean, we got to be quite close, and it's kind of worked for me in my work all through healthcare. Yeah.
And I know, Tina, when we were talking, we spoke of how past relationships, even fractured relationships like you had with your father, and how that really shaped your conception of empathy, how you frame it and how you enact empathy with the older adults you work at. Do you mind speaking a little bit about that?
There was a situation when I was, I guess, in my 20s when I first started working in it was more of a retirement nursing home. It was really quite cute. It was in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. It was adorable. It had like a matron, and there was a fellow there that they had a really difficult time with. He was like very unmanageable and they didn't know what to do with him. I actually was working as a dietary aide in the dining room, and him and I were striking up a lot of conversations in the dining room, and we got along really well. And then it sort of became my job to sort of communicate with this fellow, right? Because nobody was doing it. And I mean, we got along great. And I thought, he was an alcoholic, this fellow, right? And I just understood and, learned his story. And oh my gosh, he never gave them any challenges again after that. And I thought, geez, we're on to something, and it's worked in my work now. I mean, wherever I've gone, I just really listen to people. I want to know their story. I want to know a lot about them, what they like, what they don't like. And it's not hard to do. It's just something that comes from the heart, and I'm genuinely interested in them. And it seems to make my job easier, and we all get along really well. So, yeah.
And I know you spoke when we were preparing about the power of being able to sit down and just be able to listen and have the time to do so.
Yeah, I think the problem with everybody is that everyone's just busy. Everybody's too busy. Everybody's on their telephones. Nobody really seems to have a whole lot of time to talk to anybody, let alone seniors, because seniors, I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm going to be 64 in August, and, they feel invisible. And I think that when you feel invisible like that, you tend to isolate yourself more, and you start being lonely. And I just think, if we don't get to know them, nobody's ever going to know anything about them. You're not going to connect them up with other people. They just don't feel like they're in place. If you don't take the time to sit, I mean, it doesn't take anything, a little bit of your time. And I just don't think our program wouldn't work at Oasis if we didn't take the time to get to know each person. And I'm talking each person, not just a select few, but every individual who walks into that place. You need to stop and get to know those people. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You just need to stop if I'm on the telephone and I'm taking a phone call, like I see somebody come in and I can see by their face that they're not having the best day, I'll cut the call short and they get my attention. And if anyone calls during that time, I just do not pick up. There's nothing worse, is there, than, somebody calling and you're like, you're in second spot and the caller isn't first. It doesn't work that way with me. They're like the universe at the moment, right? And they love it.
And Tina, I've seen this over the years, seeing you interact with everyone at Oasis, and this ability to, as you've just even alluded to, that everybody equally. And
very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's not very many people that I really don't know, unless, there's the odd one that doesn't really come downstairs, which is the basement lounge in my office. There are a few, but even on if they don't come down a lot and I don't get to know them really well, we still have really great communication, because I always make it my job to find something out about them. I want to know who's in their family. I want to know what they like to do. I want to know what they don't like to do. I want to know all of it. And then you can really work your program around it, right? If you have 10 people who want to do a certain hobby, and this person likes creative writing, I think it's really important to go with the one person who likes creative writing, because you just can't always let somebody outnumber them, right? You have to show them that they're important. And that to me is like having some empathy and getting to know them really well, and saying, hey, you know what? You're the only person in all of this program who really likes creative writing, but we're going to let you take care of this and start a program up. And it's usually quite successful too.
Tina,
yeah.
Thanks for that. What really resonates with me both right now and when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you, Catherine, and I, was really that connection with people, and how universally sitting down and sitting with somebody and looking right at them and having them know that you're not distracted. That means a lot, I think, in a lot of different care environments. And it sounds like you are a lioness when it comes to being with somebody. It then makes me, you mentioned your dad earlier and how that, was foundational, but I wonder if you could walk us through sort of the different care roles that you've had over the last 20 plus years, and then how you ended up at Oasis, and then I might ask you to sort of tell us what your role at Oasis has been, and how you and Catherine sort of came together. Sorry, that was a big mouthful right there.
Yeah. Okay, I will do my best. I started out, I think I didn't have any children or anything, and I was living in Alberta, and I started out, like I had just mentioned earlier, in a retirement home, and I kind of found that was something I really enjoyed, working with the seniors. So we sort of moved back to Ontario eventually in the 80s with the 3 kids, and I wanted to do something that would allow me to be home in the morning with the kids, and it would allow me to be there when they got home from school. So I'd had healthcare aid experience, so I ended up doing, which was called home care. And back in those days, you used to go to someone's house for like 4 hours in the morning, and then you'd have another shift 4 hours in the afternoon. Unheard of now. Yeah. You might be lucky to get 30 minutes for a bath, or 15 minutes to take off their stockings. So I worked at a couple agencies, and I really enjoyed it. Really got to know the people. Had some situations that I could never understand until at this day. You'd go, and the woman would say she lived downtown, I don't know, on King Street, and she she wanted me to polish her Royal Daltons because she was having a bridge party. And I just thought, oh my God. And actually the care was on her husband, not her. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I was like, no, that's not what I do. So anyways, I ended up, eventually I was in the Alzheimer care, the respite program for the VON. And I worked there for many, many years. Loved it. Took everybody out. You more or less took them out to either give the caregiver a break, and you took the person out, or you stayed home with them. Most often we went out. And it was very challenging, and it was difficult to work in a program like that. And in comes the empathy again, because, here's this person and their cognitive abilities have diminished quite a bit. And I mean, we communicate quite well, but usually they were well advanced in their Alzheimer's symptoms. So I would, sort of look around the house and really get to, the pictures and see what their life was like before. And it's really quite heartbreaking because, they're us, like they're still people and they're us. And, they had kids and they had grandkids and had wonderful jobs and worked at them for, 35, 40 years. And here they're really like, I mean, it breaks my heart. So we would go out in the car and, take them to the park and have a coffee or tea, and we would communicate, sometimes really well. Other times it was more difficult. Some days are good, some days are bad, but I loved it. Like, I just loved it. And, I had this fellow who used to get in my car, and I guess the way the Alzheimer's affected his brain is that he always would put his coat on with the zipper up the back. And, when he got in my car, he would sit on his knees facing the back seat. And so I was starting to figure out that everything he was doing was sort of, reversed, and just started trying to deal with him that way, and it wasn't going to say, oh, you're getting in the car wrong. Like, I still have to strap him in, which is hard when you're facing the back. But I just learned to, I wasn't going to correct them. Obviously, I'm not going to make them better. And I just tried to make their life as happy as I could. So anyways, the way that we got to Oasis, there was a posting that there was an Oasis program, and they were partnering up with the VON, and they would like somebody to come, actually 2 people, because my coworker and I both got the job. And so we worked 2.5 days each, and we still did our respite work. And what we ended up doing was eventually giving up the respite program altogether, because Oasis kept us quite busy. So my role really ended up being the person who was in the office the most and doing all the computer work. And my partner, Tracy, she ended up doing quite a bit of the PSW work, which I really didn't do much of. So she was more hands-on, and I was more sort of the troubleshooter down in the office. And I mean, the history of Oasis is quite long, and it changed from, I went from the VON to SOS. I worked for the SOS out of Napanee, and now Providence Care. And it's been up and down, but I think we're in a pretty good place. And I think Oasis is really what it was intended to be. I think it kind of got off to a different start, and then we realized that's probably not the direction we want to go in. But now I think it's a wonderful program, and everything that we're doing is for people to stay home in an age and place. And I mean, it's what I want for myself. It's what the founder of the program wanted, Christine McMillan. And it's just something that I think we need, and less nursing homes. And I'm retiring in July, so my time is running out. Yeah.
Thanks, Tina. And that's why it's so great to be able to hear you reflect on your career, especially knowing that you're close to retirement yourself. And I know, Shayna, you had a question for Tina.
Thank you, Tina, for sharing your wisdom and experience. And I just think how lucky the people who you've worked with are to have worked with you. And so because I work with a lot of medical students, I'm immediately thinking like, oh, how can we bring this to medical students? And I guess the question is wondering, does it take a certain maturity in one's practice to be able to understand this approach that you have? Because I see students especially so so anxious about making a mistake and about knowing a lot of content, and it's hard to get them to see this, but I see it coming much more easily or instinctively to people who are more mature in their practice. So I'm curious about your thoughts about how to help people who are coming into the helping professions to see the value of your approach.
Thank you for that question, Shayna. I've been asked that. It's funny because we have a job description that was recently made up for my job. And a lot of the people that are in our program say, oh, they have to be over 40. Well, obviously you can't ask for the person to be over 40, right? Because that's discrimination. But, oh, they have to understand, and I think that, that being older, like I started there, I guess, when I just turned 50, definitely you're more mature. But I think the biggest thing is common sense. It's just common sense, as is the case probably for pretty much everything that goes on in the world. If you just had a little common sense, you'd go a long way. You've got this, you've got that, but really sometimes it just boils down to the simple things, right? Like listening, and having a little bit of a heart that's actually beating. But yeah, maturity, I'd have to agree. Like, yes, maturity is a big one. I mean, we have had people in over the years that came as students, that's wanted to stay for 2 weeks. I guess it's, they put in so much time, part of their program. Oftentimes it did not work. I hope none of them are out there. If you are, I apologize. But, they would sit in the chair and they would be, texting and doing what people do. And the seniors just were so offended. I mean, it's offensive, to, people are there to try to learn about you and you about them. And I just feel if you don't have the time of day to like listen to a story from one of the folks there, like you're missing out. You're just missing out big time. I think sometimes people see seniors and they're just like, oh my God, she's coming to talk to me. Oh my God, she's going to probably ask me to carry groceries in or something, right? It's terrible. It's nothing like that, But sometimes people just run the other way. It's like, oh, here she comes. She's going to start talking my head off again. Oh, wouldn't that be just a bad thing, You might learn something, really. I don't understand.
Those are great points, Tina. And I'm going to let Sandy Goldman, who it's wonderful to see you, Sandy. She has a question, and I might circle back and do a bit of reflections on the students or just the value of listening. Sandy, lovely to see you in Vancouver.
Thank you. It's just great to be participating today. Tina, how are you? How are you, friend?
I'm lovely to see you. I knew you would be coming up.
I guess I wanted to direct this sort of to Shayna. I don't know you, but I know from what Tina has taught me, and the way I came into this is that I produced some podcasts about Oasis for Vancouver Cooperative Radio, and it was wonderful to meet the people and all the various people involved, including some of the members of Oasis, and talk to them. Tina, one of the things that I was really struck with in interviewing you and talking to you subsequently is the fact that listening is so important. Listening, empathy, caring. And, when it comes to people who I met through doing my research, Catherine, there are a few of your students that were helping out at Oasis expansion sites. I can't remember where, I think it was the one out in the countryside, the one at the recreational park or whatever that was.
The mobile park.
We interviewed them, and these were young people. I guess they were learning to be OTs or physiotherapists or whatever, and they were about to graduate. But, they had such empathy and caring and great connections. And I think both of them, or for sure one of them, wanted to go into work with seniors. And these were people, what would you say, in their early 20s? Something like that.
Yeah, early 20s.
And so I really think, and I'm a teacher, and I work with very young children, and we talk about good listening, how to be an attentive listener, looking at people, nodding in to show understanding, not being distracted. And we're building empathy from a very, very young age. And so I don't think it's necessarily a matter of being a certain age to work with seniors. I think it's a matter of caring, deep caring and wanting to listen and wanting to get to know somebody. And I'm just going to give you a quick aside, which is that when the pandemic first began, and isolation for everyone was very, very difficult, particularly for seniors. There was a young woman in a small town in New Brunswick who was delivering food from the food bank to seniors in their homes. And we did a story on this. She's really interesting. And when she went to this one senior's home, the senior really appreciated the food, but really wanted her to stay and talk, because she hadn't talked to anyone or been out of her house at that point for a couple of months. And this young woman was so taken by what had occurred that she said, yes, I'll come back every week, even if I'm not making a delivery, and we'll talk. And she was part of a group of students at, I think it was Mount Allison University, many of whom were foreign students who were also away from home, away from their families, and they were feeling the isolation as well. So the seniors and the young folk, she started a program where they were able to get together when restrictions were lifted to kind of have community meals, right? And each senior was paired with a young person from the university, and they built this tremendous connection in the community. So I just really think it takes a person who is really interested, really caring, and as you say, Tina, not looking down at their phone, but looking at the person they're talking to. I think that's a tremendous loss to people in our communities these days who, as I call, looker downers, right? And who are missing so much of the world. These are not people who I don't really think want to connect. But I think you have to find people who really do want to connect. And I think if you're wanting to train people to go into work with seniors, ask them about their own grandparents and their connections. Ask them if they can talk about somebody who's older in their life, who might be special to them. And, what's that connection all about? I don't think it's for everybody. I think the soft skills are the most important skills: the listening, the caring, the empathy. And I think we need, you can have all the, not common sense, you can have all the, tools in your head and the knowledge from your courses. But if you're not a people person, honestly, really, it's not for you. Anyway, I think Oasis is amazing. And I just want to add one quick thing. We're doing a story on a PSW worker co-op in Ontario, in Peterborough and Durham. So that, just like you said, Tina, they take 2 hours in home care per resident, not 30 minutes. And they're paying their workers good wages, and the workers feel better and the residents feel better. It's called the Home Care Workers Cooperative, and it just launched in the last year.
It's great
so
to see.
Respect for everybody. Yeah, great. Thank you.
It reminded me, I'm just going to say something quick. When you said that they had kind of weren't able to talk or lost their voice, when I was connecting up with some people at the Oasis site during the pandemic and I was working from home, I was calling quite a few of them. And one lady, I said, "Oh my goodness, you've got an awful sore throat." She said, "No." I said, "Are you sick?" She said, "No." She said, "I just haven't spoke to anybody until you call. I don't talk to anybody." Oh my gosh, right in the heart.
Yeah,
was bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Catherine has said, and the Oasis program, right? Social isolation is just about the worst killer, isn't it? Like, who wants to be isolated?
No.
Thank you,
Sandy. Thanks for that. just before we get to Val, who's had her hand up very patiently for a little while, Helen, thank you for putting in the chat there, just sort of some background about Oasis, and about how it operates and the community that has been formed there that Tina's been so instrumental to. Thanks for adding that. And I think Catherine just threw in a link there too. Val, did you want to go ahead?
Hi, Tina.
Hi, Val. Oh my goodness. That's so nice.
Tina and I have known each other since I was 11 years old. I'm good friends with her daughter. And honestly, Tina, I think it's so funny that I'm only just learning of all of the things that you did in your career that are part of what I do in my career now in home care, working with SOS and PSWs with the different agencies. And so I want to thank you for all of the work that you've done over your career. And I just want to pick up on the point that we were talking about, or you were talking about, in regards to what makes somebody able to take that time and make that connection with people. And I think, honestly, in healthcare, from a healthcare perspective, and what Shayna was getting at, is a lot about time, and the ability to prioritize that connection, right? I just started teaching my undergrad course at Queen's in hospice palliative care. Last night was our first seminar, and the students kept asking me, they're in just finished second and third year nursing. They kept asking, what kinds of things do we need to complete at clinical? Like, what tasks? Like, how do we know, like, which things are we supposed to be focusing on? And I said, I want you to take this opportunity in this elective course to find the time to do the things that are meaningful for you in being a nurse, not the tasks and skills necessarily, but more you're not having to do this A, B, C, D. You're able to take the time to sit with a patient and really get to know them and look at them from a holistic view, which is all what hospice palliative care is, but also is what good healthcare should be. And that we should be able to provide students with opportunities to prioritize that in their learning and not overwhelm them with tasks and skills that they need to learn that are also important, but also allow them that time to prioritize the person who they're caring for. So thanks for highlighting that. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Val.
I listened to your humanities and healthcare too, and I was just like all like teary-eyed, yeah. Because we had a lady in our program that was in the MAID program, same thing, and yeah, it brought back some memories of going over and watching her in the hospital. And her choice was to have the medically assisted, that Val does, and I was just so happy for this lady that she was able to go the way that she wanted to. She passed with her family all around her choice, her time, her favorite food, and I just thought, and of course Valerie works in that, and I was very proud of you. So great thing, yeah. Lovely to see you.
So nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Val. Tina, you had mentioned something before. I kind of giggled to myself the last few minutes because I'm a pretty chatty person too, which is why I think I in the short time of chatting with you, feel I know a lot of the kind of person you are, and we often tease ourselves, those of us who are very chatty. But the one thing that you really said about connecting with people is not just the talking, but more importantly is the listening part of people feeling listened and genuinely wanting to listen. I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit about the listening part.
So I think some people can listen. I mean, there's a lot of bad listeners and there's a lot of good listeners, but I think listening has a lot to do with hearing too, like, you're listening, but are you really hearing? And sometimes I think that's the part of the puzzle that's missing. And when you talk about empathy, I had made like sort of this little quote. I hang it up at my desk, and it just sort of says that, empathy is, feeling that, about the person you walked a mile in their shoes, and having sympathy for them is really about, sorry that their feet hurt, kind of doesn't really make sense to some people, but that sort of has to do with something with listening and hearing too. You really have to hear, what are they saying? And, why do they feel this way? And, and get to the root of it all. And I don't know, it's a game changer, totally a game changer for me. You take that into your life, you do it with your family, you do it with your grandchildren. By the way, I have to say about my grandchildren, they've been to Oasis, all of them. I've made it a point to bring them into the program at some point. And I think that most important thing that I could do as a grandmother is to show those children empathy and let them learn it in their life. And I think that they're already learning it, and they're doing such a good job. I get choked up.
Thanks, Tina. And I think you've alluded to something that I've been thinking about as well. Many times we say we can't teach empathy. And you just spoke about, bringing your grandchildren to Oasis, because it's about showing empathy and teaching empathy through that experience. And I just put in the chat, like, sometimes I can tell a student's doing well or not well by how they react to, going into one of the Oasis sites. If they tell me they just chatted all day, I think to myself, no, you didn't chat. You deeply listened, or that's what you should have done. I actually, if you don't mind, I was going to ask another question, just because I know that the pandemic's been just so difficult at Oasis and for many older adults, and just wanted to ask you sort of a twofold question. How have you coped watching the older adults at Oasis deal with social isolation and loneliness? Like, what are some of the stories that you have seen in terms of how people have connected? What have you done, but also how you have coped watching it all unfold? Because I know that must have been terribly difficult.
Yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, it was difficult for everybody, obviously, who's been affected by the pandemic, but especially the seniors, I think, have suffered. Probably seniors and children, in my mind, have probably suffered more than anybody. Seniors, they are social creatures, especially at Oasis. Here we've taken all this time to grow this program, and then suddenly, we tell them, that's it. You know what? Go to your apartment, and you basically can't come out, right? Like, you can't have your friends in, you can't see your family. I mean, it's just like a death sentence, really. And that's what I was worried about, because I had to come home, and I was home for probably, I guess, 3 months, working from home and ordering meals from Heart to Home, because our meal program had been shut down too. And there was suppers 3 times a week in a dining room like atmosphere at Oasis. And they were socializing, having meals together, as Catherine well knows, because Catherine volunteered to serve, and so did her daughter Claire. Just to have that all taken away is, I still can't even imagine how they felt, but I see it, it's visible, they're still recovering, but it really took a toll on some of the ones who were really up in their 90s and were really used to exercising, and the exercising that they were doing, it showed that, it was working for them. They built up strength. They built up, a lot of better eating habits and good nutrition coming to the program. And then all of that just spiraled. Like, it was awful to watch that. I asked if I could go back to work. I'm just like, let me go back to work. I promise I won't let them all come in at one time, and, I'll follow all the protocols. Anyway, I got permission to go back to work. And I just, I was calling them all the time from home and checking in on them and talking to them and honestly, by the end of the day, oh my God, my head was ready to blow up because the whole day was spent on the phone, and it's a cell phone and it's not the same as being face to face. I tried to teach them Zoom, worked out well with some of them. Most of them, they're just like, oh, no, I am not looking at myself on that screen. No, thank you. I set that up and I just got one look at my chin and I just shut it right off and I'm not coming back. Well, okay, fair enough. I feel the same way sometimes. But yeah, it took a terrible toll on the seniors. And I tried my hardest to prevent that from further escalation. I just thought, we can't let this happen. Like I got to do something. And when I was home, I was constantly sending them emails about things they liked. So this is where, when you know people as well as I know them, it was very easy to categorize what each person would want to see in their email. So that was a benefit of getting to really know someone. So I was sending, this person, things about travel. And this person is very religious. And she was getting a lot of, the famous and most beautiful churches in the world. And she would be on virtual tours, and other people love opera. And I would send other people funny stuff, some people trivia. I was going crazy trying to figure all this out. But then I started getting good at it, and I started getting a little too good at it because I think I drove them, wild. So that worked. I still do that, but not as much. And I'm sure they're thankful for that. I sent them a lot of stuff on COVID in the early days because, let's face it, we were all scared, them more so. And, I just sent them stuff that they should know about protocols and what the government was saying. But I didn't want to overdo it. I wanted to send them a lot of funny stuff and things to keep their spirits up, right? And so that worked out well. When I got back to work and I was allowed in the office, I was allowed one-on-one visits. And that worked out pretty well. It just was never the same, though. We were talking and we eventually went outside and we were having ice cream once or twice a week outside, just giving them something, and they all had their lawn chairs separated. But I would look around at them and all, it just was heartbreaking. They were used to getting their hair done up and their hair was all growing out straight and long, and they just looked so tired, and just like they'd given up, a lot of them. Hard to watch. They're on the rebound now, exercise is back and, socializing and then and then I tell them that I'm retiring. I just couldn't pick that time, I was thinking of doing it last year and I thought, I cannot do this to these people. I just can't. I'm going to have to wait, and it was hard to do even now, but they're a strong bunch. And I think that they're going to be fine. We have a lady that's going to be 100 in August. It's remarkable. She walks around, just starting to use a walker. And I think Oasis has really helped her get to that point where she is. And the other 15 or so that are over 90, remarkable. I'm not afraid to age, not at all. Not at all. I'm just like, if I can be like these guys, this is good. This is good. Yeah.
And Tina, I'm picking up on this idea. I know they're going to miss you terribly because for many, many reasons, but I'm going to pick up on the thread that we've been talking about listening and really making those deep connections. And so would you mind sharing a few stories? Because I know you have a ton of different stories over the years about even thinking about connections amongst the members of Oasis in the building and the connections that you've seen grow over the years and how you've seen that really shape how well they're doing.
When I came to Oasis, it was kind of, well, it wasn't fun. Let me say, it wasn't fun at all. It was really quite frightening because I was in the common room next door. They didn't even have an office or a lounge for us, and they stuck us over in this corner. And they were like, get to know everybody. And I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. And so, of course, the people were coming in, and this was their room where they regularly played cards and did all their activities. And of course, they don't want me in there listening to what they have to say, right? I was getting the side eye from a lot of them. I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to crack this? Like these people don't want me around, like I'm hearing everything they're talking about. So that wasn't fun. And I'd get out of there as fast as I could and give them their privacy. But what I found over the years is that the more we got together and we had the social gatherings, the more people got to know each other, because honestly, a lot of them didn't know each other, like not at all. They did have a social committee, and they did do stuff together and had a lot of fun. Yes, but the program just, kind of enhanced all of that. So now when you go in the building, there are younger people living in the building now, but the majority of them are women, widows. And there's maybe 4 or 5, maybe 4 couples that are married. And these people are all like best friends. You would honestly think that when you go in there, they're all saying hi to each other and helping each other and going to the store for each other and taking each other food. And I'm just like, it makes me feel wonderful to see all this happening, because that when you leave there, of course it's going to be okay, but it's really going to be okay, because even if they lost Oasis someday, heaven forbid, that doesn't ever happen, they're going to be all right, because they've made friends with each other and they care about each other. And that's a big part of Oasis to me is, get to know this lady. I would sort of be pushing, oh, did you know this lady moved into apartment such and such? And she's around your age, and oh, you're going to love her, and oh, I'll get her, and you guys can sit and talk. And, they all become friends. I don't know anybody in that building who doesn't like somebody else. And we've had our ups and downs, of course, but we always fix it, right? Yeah, everybody's friends. It's like a big family, and I am part of it. And the best thing about Oasis is I'm the youngest person in the room all the time. That's the part I'm going to miss. The youngest person, they always call me the kid, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to miss this. Yeah.
That's funny, Tina. And I know you've been foundational in creating that community.
Oh, it's been fun. I'm going to really miss it. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud. I know that I've had a big part in it. I know that. I'm not being, I'm not saying, oh, look at me. I just know, because I know who I am. And I know that, I make it my job to make sure that everybody's happy and everybody's taken care of, to a fault sometimes, Like, you haven't had pancakes since when? Oh my God. And I'm running to McDonald's the next morning on my way to work, and I'm picking them up. I can't help myself. What? You haven't had, oh my God, what book are you looking for? Oh my God. And now I'm at the thrift store.
It's that family. It's that family you've created, Tina.
I guess so.
I know Damon has a question and comment that he wanted to add too.
Okay.
Tina, I don't want to, upset you anyway, but I wonder, when we talk about how wonderful the program is and how much, that the community comes together. And when you talk of just thinking about COVID and saying, we always fix it, the relationships. But I guess I'm wondering about the times when, residents have come to the end of their life, expectedly, unexpectedly, and particularly with COVID, if you'd feel comfortable sort of talking about how hard it was, because I'm just imagining how hard it'd be for the residents, but also for you as a caregiver, as we come together as a community of caregivers here, like that must have been really hard.
Are we talking about people passing away in general, like over the years? Is that something that
I think that, and then whether, I guess what I'm getting, yes, and then whether COVID really made things so much harder, or not even being able to physically being there and learning that somebody had passed and you weren't there with them like normal, like that would, I can only imagine how much that must have hurt.
Well, definitely, we did lose, I think 3 people during COVID, like in the beginning. And one of them, of course, I was home and heard about it right off. I think it was about a month into COVID. And this person was in their 90s and had been in the program a very long time. But just the fact that, whenever there was a funeral pre-COVID,
Mhm.
the whole place, we would all turn up, all of us. I mean, we would take up a whole section, right? And even when, my own mother-in-law, who lived in the building for many years and was part of the program, I was there as a family member, and all these people came out to, support me and friends of her. And it was just so wonderful to see. And so not being able to go and mourn,
Mhm.
as a family, the way that we all should, and not to be able to go to the funeral or anything, that's been really, really hard, really hard on the folks, hard on me. I reach out to the family, and actually, I got a lovely little plant the other day that someone had sent me that had a celebration of life that I wasn't able to go to because of something else at work. And so the family sent me, she brought me down a little plant, and that was quite cute. And, I've sent flowers to people over the years, and people have sent me flowers when something in my family happened. And it's funny because just the other day I was looking at all my little flowers outside, my tulips and everything, and I thought, some of them are from people that sent me them, and then I saved the bulbs, and now they keep coming up every year, right? But yes, losing anybody has been difficult. Since I started working at Oasis, we have lost 60 people. That's quite a few in 14 years.
Mhm.
I have all their names and all their pictures, and it was really hard in the beginning, but now the way I look at it is that we're very lucky to have known any of those people.
Mhm.
I think every one of those people enhanced my life in some small way or a big way, right? I just think that we were lucky to have known them, and I don't really feel that sad anymore when people pass away. I just feel like, we had a lot of good years with these people, and their families did, and they don't want you to, mourn them in that way. They're always usually ready to go. I find they say to me, I'm ready to go. Like I feel like I've done enough. And when you think about it, when you think about the widows, a lot of them have been without a spouse for, some of them, 25, 30 years. Probably one of the biggest things that I admire about the people at Oasis, be it a man or a woman, is their ability to keep going forward in life that way and just keep on living. And sometimes in the middle of the night, like I wake up in the dark and I'm coming out to use the washroom or something, and sometimes it comes over me because I'm getting older too. And I think, oh my God, what would this be like? Me getting up in the middle of the night and I'm all by myself, right? And so I think that they have probably helped me a lot to sort of, have the ability to accept things as they're going to come. I don't know if my husband's going to go before me or if I'm going to go before him. But I think that if he goes before me, I'm going to be pretty well prepared in my mind because of the people at Oasis. I think they've taught me that those women, they've lost their husbands, and a lot of them, those women, quite a few of them worked and had great jobs, but just as many of them didn't. And they had to kind of learn to live all over again, taking care of finances, taking care of everything. And there's not a day goes by where they never show up smart. Oh my gosh, they're smartly dressed. They come to exercise with lovely necklace on, got that purse, they're living. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Your life is for living, and they live with a spouse, without a spouse. They just keep on trucking, and I want to be just like them.
Tina, I've been writing down what the pen just flung out of my hand. a lot of, a lot of different of your statements that I just think are so poignant. I'm going to take with me. You know, life is for living, but also just lucky to get to know you and all of the relationships that you've built over the 15 years of Oasis. And, you know, it really circles back to the beginning of the hour when we talk about how important it is to sit down and develop those relationships. So I was going to end there unless someone else has a question, and just wanted to say, Tina, I was feeling a bit teary as you were talking about all the relationships that you've developed over the years, and just want to say thank you for teaching myself. And I think I'm speaking for Vince and Simone who are on the call, and how much we have learned from you, and, you know, hoping that we can bring this same experience to Oasis that you've brought to everyone in the Bowling Green building, and spread that to other people. So I just wanted to say, I feel lucky to have got to know you too, Tina, and all the best in retirement. I know you're going to be missed by so many different people.
Oh, I'll be back. I'll be back to visit. I'll be checking in. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Tina. And thank you for sharing so much today.
The hour went fast.
It did go very fast.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tina.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.